Hey, what's up guys? So today we're going to be doing a new updated Banlist Monarch deck profile, with this being a upgraded deck profile, which is a new way where we're going to be showcasing off decks. We're going to be showing off different ways that it will win and other ways that it will lose, kind of going over the ins and the outs, the pros and the cons of the deck over here. But we will also give you guys multiple different builds, as again, it's an upgraded deck profile. So anyways, the deck definitely relies off of a lot of different back row. So how the deck would be very strong is being able to stun your opponent. You have lots of different ways to stun. You happen to be able to tribute your opponent's monsters with Monarch Stormforth. You also have escalation, so you can be reactive during your opponent's turn. You also have domain, which locks them out of the extra deck. You have Vandy's Fiend, which will basically make it so you're going to be able to make it so they cannot go for any special summons. Now, the downsides to this deck, though, is basically that you are sometimes heavily invested into a lot of back row. So susceptible to things like Lightning Storm and, of course, Harpy's Feather Duster on the new ban list. Those could be cards that will absolutely obliterate you very, very quick. If you happen to place like, 3-4 back row, you've got your domain and you got your one tributed summon monster, and you're trying to set up for your Stormforth, your escalation play, and you just get hit by all the back row destruction. So that is the huge downside with this deck. But the thing is if you just go ahead and throw out, let's say, Majesty's or Vandy's Fiend, and obviously this can knock a card out, but for the most part, there's not too many things that stun in the Monarch name. It's mostly Vandy's and then the Majesty's that would be able to stun, because the other cards in Monarchs even have Eruption that can stun your opponent. You need to have not only Vandy's or Majesty's, but you also need another card that can be a stun. So Domain can be another card. But if your opponent plays lots of back row destruction, yeah, this could be the way that this deck loses. And in this case over here, he's got the bonus of 800, so he's able to go ahead and run over the Elderlich guy over here, which is always usually at 3,500. So this is how he's going to be able to go over that, and he just GG'd out. So that was against the Numeron Elderlich, which is still a very popular deck. Now we're going to see it up against one of the other decks that got a huge buff on the new Banlist, the Paleozoic Frogs, or any frog variant deck. But anyways, this one's going to highlight the new card, Selene Glare, the Luminous Lunar Dragon, as it's called in the TCG. I know the name says it differently here, but that's the name in the TCG, just in case you guys are trying to search it up and you don't see the Dazzling Lunar Dragon. So this card's a card that I would say is newer for them to go ahead and utilize as a tech card. So it actually has this ability that's really good. So you can normal summon or set this card without tributing, but its original attack becomes 1,500. Then during the main phase, as a quick effect, you get to target one monster your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to this card. Return this card to the hand if you do take control of that opponent's monster until the end phase, and you can only use this effective at once per turn. So it's kind of like a spirit, since it does happen to bounce itself back after you're getting that effect. But then also you're able to go ahead and disrupt your opponent, so it adds a little bit more depth to the deck. And I think that this card is really good at being able to specifically take your opponent's card so they can't double up on, let's say, Totally Awesome, or any key card that they need. If you played against an Orcus player, you know that they really need that extra Orcus name sometimes because Harp Horror is gone. And if you just literally take the Orcus, they can't extend their combo. There's getting the two monsters doesn't matter if they're not, one of them isn't Orcus, and that can be a problem for some builds of Orcus, because there's just not another Orcus monster to go ahead and go into Galatea to start everything. So just even Snatch Stealing, even though that Snatch Steal doesn't last forever, I mean, once it's end phase, what are they going to do? There's no chain anything that they're going to go ahead and be able to go right into a Link Summon. There are technically cards, but the Orcus decks don't play it. But anyways, yeah, this card is actually pretty great, and Monarchs are going to be really good because they can be very resilient. As in, the Prime Monarch, this card just gets a lot of advantage. You also have your Idea and Eidos, and then, of course, with access to Pantheism at 3, which is the huge change, and what the whole reason why anyone is even bothering playing Monarchs is because that card is really, really powerful. I mean, you have Search Whatever, you basically reveal all 3 copies of the same card. You're basically searching for whatever you want to go ahead and search out for. Then you have Tenacity. The deck has a lot of consistency built into it, but honestly, the deck can still brick, as you play lots of cards that require a tribute summon, and sometimes you just don't open up with them. Like if you have a bunch of cards that require tribute summon, and you just don't happen to have the right card, like you have the other cards as like Eruption, where it's like, oh, you can control the tribute summon monster, but if you cannot get that tribute summon, you don't have that Stormforth or access to maybe the trap card that resummons itself every single dang turn, then that's where the deck would be losing. Interesting enough, it's going to be a little bit different for this one. Usually I like to show off multiple ways that the deck loses, but it just loses to a brick, which I feel like is not really entertaining to watch. But yeah, this card is another tech card that I think a lot of people will like at 1, because it's going to bounce itself back. It's kind of hard for this card to go away. But he's going to go ahead and stat steal the Rodentonen over here. The guy's going to go ahead and imperm this, but he's got the Aether over here, so he's going to go tribute. So he's going to lose out to that, unfortunately for him. So the guy goes ahead and says, oh, you know what? Evenly matched mate in main. Unfortunately, he didn't live up to his name, so he actually just left that one. So this next one up is against Dinosaur. So I mentioned that this deck can definitely lock your opponent out with cards like Domain, where they cannot go for cards in the extra deck. Now, Dinosaurs is a deck where, well, they don't really care about the extra deck too much. A lot of them are playing, of course, Extravagance now, so they don't really require it too much. I mean, technically, you could still play cards like Dolka, but for the most part, the deck doesn't need the extra deck. So this deck over here, again, Lightning Storm is really what can hurt the deck. In this case, there's only 2, but you could have easily had, like, let's say the Eruption or any other back row over here. Again, because you want to be more reactive during your opponent's turn, generally with Yugioh, this deck can't really play too many hand traps, and the reason why is because you want that consistency for the deck, and basically what it comes down to is it's bricks. It's if you play too many hand traps or like impermanences, which you can still play impermanences, you can still play hand traps. I'm not saying you can't play those in Monarchs, but the problem that the deck will have is the consistency. You basically have to be able to run a bunch of the Monarchs, plus you need all of the Monarch, so basically the spells is what is very powerful in the deck. It would lose out to technically to Trade Beasts, as they are heavily reliant, not necessarily off of monster effects. I mean, obviously, yeah, like they do have monster effects, but things like Vandy's Fiend are what's going to make them actually win most of the duels, and also locking your opponent out and playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. So in this instance, we have to see Dark Ruler No More. So this is why you need to play other back row for the deck. Like if they hit you with a Dark Ruler No More, hey, if you happen to have Domain, you happen to have Eruption, there's a lot of other cards, or there can only be one, which you guys are going to see in the deck profile as well over here. When you play cards like that, it can back up your other plays, but when you invest too much into all the back row, a Lightning Storm, a Duster, they can be very, very problematic for the deck to deal with, because, again, you don't have too many disruptions in the Monarch form. It's basically just Vanities. Majesties can technically do kind of the same thing, but I'd say Vanities over Majesties. You can still play both. They're light and dark, so you can throw in that BLS, so he's just going to have to say GG as imperm against this. Not too good, and he doesn't have another monster over here. But again, I like to show off the ways that the deck loses. That one he did actually manage to recover from that play. So like I mentioned before, Dinos, they don't really care too much about the extra deck, so he lost out on Link Haribo, he lost out on the Samorg. So Monarchs definitely aren't going to be special summoning too much, so that card going away doesn't really matter. As a lot of people are running, of course, the ability to lock your opponent out of special summoning anything except for wind monsters is the main play. That's why the Samorg is in the Dinosaurs, by the way. But anyways, we see the Reprodokus. He's going to go ahead and change the type over here to Winged Beast. And again, I guess he's using this as a stepping stone in this instance. But yeah, Overtext Coatlas or anything that... in this instance, I honestly would have suggested Lagia, as again, Monarchs don't have that many effects that they will be going for. He does happen to have Beggar Statue. Oh, he does in this case happen to have a card they can summon. But you can see after this, there really isn't a play, as he cannot special summon. And this is I was going to get a lot more gameplay footage of the deck losing, but like when you open up with like several tribute summon monsters, and I guess in this case he's playing Gamma here, there wasn't an option to really deal with this board, because again, like if he had any other card like a Stormforth here, after this negation he would just tribute the Dolka and he would have unfortunately lost out to. That's why I said Lagia is better. You don't need to negate too many monster effects in the Monarch build. I would say the more important thing is to negate these spells in there if you want to basically beat the deck, since this is an upgraded deck profile. But I have lots of different builds for you guys. This one's by Lewis C over here that I really like. This is one of what I consider a very standard deck. There's a few tech cards. These are things that I would lose to, by the way. If you don't have to play like Bandies plus backup, and again, the hefty investment sometimes is just losing into Lightning Storm and Duster. But pretty much from most builds, you'll see multiple copies for Herbers. I'll mouse over these relatively quick and I'll explain some of the stuff if it needs to be explained. But most of the stuff has not changed too much, as there hasn't been any new Monarch cards. It's basically that, of course, that we happen to get the triple Pantheism. That's a huge deal for the deck, as you basically want to go ahead and just throw this through the graveyard and get this thing every single turn. Plus, that adds a little bit of draw power. It lets you survive a little bit, as you guys saw versus the totally awesome duel. But yeah, these are cards. These are not the cards in the side deck. These are just basically cards I wanted to mention that, yeah, you lose to like these cards basically, as the deck doesn't have too many follow-up plays once things go bad, and if the player pops off this Monarch deck, if you don't have like Stormforth is such a great card, it's basically Kaiju, it just gets rid of your opponent's like main thing. But sometimes when your opponent sets up too many negations, and it's unfortunate, yeah, it doesn't have the power to deal with it. You can play cards like Dark Ruler no more if you want to, but sometimes Monarch doesn't have the option to get rid of a lot of different cards. Now this is the build that you guys did see with the Cellar Glare over here, which can be actually really cool, which actually has a lot more combos with the escalation. That's why you see a lot more of the classic Monarchs. There's Mobius in this build, which I feel like are basically outclassed. Like, I mean, this was the original one by the guy that you guys saw in the duel, so shout outs to him. But I feel like these cards have just been relatively outdated. That's why you don't see Caius used to be like the main Monarch that everyone wanted. Like Caius and Ryza were like the star players. You can even maybe try to tech out a Mega Monarch, but for the most part, it adds more inconsistencies to the deck, and that's basically what it has as a problem. But yeah, with Ryza and this, you can keep on just making them top deck a card that they don't want to top deck after the fact that, you take it and then you give it back to them, and then you go ahead and top deck it, so they're going to draw into it and they're going to try to go for it again. You just go quick effect again. It's nasty. I like it. But yeah, I'll show you guys it when, as in original form, but I'll just mention that I can't really recommend most of like what I'm going to call the legacy Monarchs in the deck. I would just recommend Vanities. It's just much better in my personal opinion, but I'll give you guys different builds in case you guys want to go ahead and try it. Now this is another card that you guys don't get to see too much. So the Strike of the Monarch lets you tribute one face-up level 5 or higher normal monster, summon set monster, then target one face-up card on the field and you get to negate the effects and also draw a card, and then it only lasts till the end of this turn. And then during your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish it, declare one attribute. All face-up monsters currently on the field become that attribute, but it's basically used for the other part of it. But yeah, I would always recommend there's triple Stormforth. I guess it's just way too good. There's also a bunch of Monarchs, so you can be very strong on being able to protect your cards, like that can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects, which could actually be another way for you to go ahead and protect some of your more powerful monsters like Bandies over here. So I like it for that reason. But again, you already have a lot of cards like Erupt, and on top of that you have Domain, which kind of lock your opponent out anyways. There's also another card if you guys want some more draw power over here, which is Precious Cards from Beyond. So every time you tribute, you get that Pot of Greed every single time. That's a really good effect, right? And it sounds super OP. Like, why wouldn't everyone play 3 copies? Again, the thing that Monarchs lose to, like usually I like to show you guys for these upgraded deck profiles, lots of different duels where it loses, but when it loses, it's literally just drawing things that are unplayable. Like, no matter how good the player is, if you happen to have a lot of cards that you just simply cannot tribute, that's the problem that this deck has. There's a brick fest. And then obviously there's no action deck for Monarchs, because if you want to use Domain, which everyone's going to want Domain, and on top of that, Erupt, you can't play it. Now this is the other one that you guys did see with Gamma over here. Now, Monarchs doesn't OTK very often. However, if you happen to get, like, if you use, like, Foolish to go ahead and activate some type of effect, like, if you want to recycle, let's say, Pantheism with Idea over here, you can target one of the Banish and add it back to your hand. So if you want a Foolish, you can still run Foolish. That's another card I can recommend in the deck as well. But if you try to activate some effect, if you can, the Gamma does give you that additional ability to tribute, but a lot of times you'll have a monster on the field before that, but sometimes you never know what the case may be, and you can go ahead and instantly Gamma, and then with this, then Monarchs can OTK. But generally Monarch is not an OTK based deck, it's not doing that. This is basically another copy of a hand trap, but it does allow you to, again, potentially go into other things, unless of course they get banished at the end. But anyways, yeah, so this is the other build over here that you guys did see from the gameplay. You'll see most of the Monarch decks to be very similar. I unfortunately can't give you guys a Frog Monarch one because that's just not viable in 2020. But yeah, that is it for the Monarchs, guys. Let me know, guys, what you think of the deck. Do you guys think it's good, bad? Was there any other cool tech cards that I missed out on? As I really like this one over here. I had a lot of just interesting choices, and I like the idea of this card. I definitely would recommend this card. And there's a lot of just other cool cards that people don't really utilize, but it's, again, the brick is the problem. But this is probably the one, if you guys are like, which one should I play? I'm unsure. I'd probably recommend this first one by Louis C that I showed off. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn the bell so you don't miss out, as we will be covering all of the new decks via the new ban lists that are viable. We ain't going to be doing Crystal Beast new ban lists because, well, there's nothing new for them. But if you guys want to send me other replays of anything else, I still need to get some Gishki footage. So if any of you guys are pro Gishki players, we'll love to see like a good Gishki loop deck. And we still need to work on ABC. I actually got on my list. We still need to get some ABC. We need some Paleozoic as well, and we need pendulums. So yeah, I'll be uploading those later down the week. So if you guys want to send in any replays, and I'll give you a shout out as well. But anyways, take care, guys. I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good one. I'm signing out. Peace.